On the dot, let's get started. Hey, everybody that is here. We're going to get this webinar kicked off on building the ultimate intranet and digital employee experience with Microsoft 365, going over Viva platform, and also configuring some advanced tactics in configuring Microsoft Search. The webinar is going to be very heavy on actual live demonstrations, but we're going to spend a little bit of time just going through a few slides to cover some of the topics, set up the context. So be prepared for a little bit of back and forth as we go. Just to quickly introduce myself, my name is Vince Pangan. I am the Senior Engagement Manager at NetWoven. I've been doing this for a long time, since the MOS days of SharePoint, and before that, building intranets, even the homegrown ones with PHP, and even some in Java before that. Currently live in Hawaii with the NetWoven's unofficial Hawaii office, and I put some of my contact information here. We'll be sharing out probably a PDF version of this deck afterwards, so you'll be able to get in touch if you need to. Quick introduction to NetWoven. This is our onshore team. We are a Microsoft cloud consulting partner. We have some really good people that have been, the company was founded by some 20+ year Microsoft employees and then Oracle employees, and now we've grown to over 100 people, maybe over 150 people between the US, and we have some remote offices out in India that we call our Global Delivery Center, and we work in all the Microsoft clouds, Dynamics 365, and also in Azure. So jumping right in, right? I know this was the ultimate intranet and the digital employee experience. So the question is really, what is the digital employee experience when we talk about it these days? I mean, when you hear the word intranet, and the intranet has really come a long way over the last 2 decades from what many people used to consider just the corporate intranet, is now just a small part actually of what we call the digital employee experience. And this is the term that's commonly used to describe the overall set of tools that your people interact with every day during the course of their work. So when we say the ultimate intranet, it's really a complete digital employee experience, meaning that whenever and wherever your employee is connected to their work, whether it's on their phone, whether they're at home or in the office, they have the tools available to them that is going to will make them more productive, more informed, and also more engaged. And the quote unquote ultimate intranet is the complete digital employee experience. So we're going to kick it off with talking about some of the challenges. I just recently completed a really big intranet modernization project. And, when we started it off, we did some persona identification, did some studies with a lot of their workers all over the place. There's remote workers, there's factory workers, your information workers, and some of the most common gripes that we heard. The number one was that content is not relevant to me. This is especially true with larger companies, and we have distributed workforces and a very generic, non-personalized intranet. Then there's too many places to go. Most companies these days use multiple cloud and desktop systems to do their work, and even to handle your internal processes, HR, payroll, help desk, and all that. I don't feel connected, right? When you have remote workers, you have hybrid workers, and you have people in different geolocations, they can oftentimes feel disconnected from their peers and their leaders because they don't have those physical engagements like they used to in the office. Now, search sucks. We hear this one all the time, and that was actually a direct quote from one of the studies we got, and the irony is that we heard that a couple of times. But I'm sure if you've worked with any sort of intranet before, you'll know that this is true, regardless of which platform your intranet may have been on. And this also ties into where it's hard to find anything. This oftentimes comes down to the information architecture, and if you don't have a very good navigational structure, and people just try to browse around rather than search, you can have a very difficult time in finding content. So we are going to look at different ways that we can overcome these challenges. So just a few numbers to throw out there at you. I'm sure a lot of you feel this, but it's actually been proven through studies that people spend a lot of their time looking for the content that they need to do their job, whether that's a process document, whether it's something that you were working on before, even just the cafeteria menu, maybe an email or a chat conversation that you had. And that can be, you know, if you're spending 1 to 2 or even more hours a day, that's 20 to 30% of your time just searching. And we also want to point out on why employee engagement is such a big deal these days, especially, as I said, with this remote and hybrid workforce. It's become really difficult for employees to feel connected with each other, to be able to communicate with each other. And this can have an adverse effect on job performance and actual job satisfaction. So as the title of the webinar says, we're going to talk about ways to use Microsoft 365. You know, it includes SharePoint Online, the Viva Suite, and some advanced search techniques to help overcome some of these challenges. So let's dive right in. The first thing we're going to start with, and I think, Ryan, you're going to throw a poll up about this, is Viva Connections. Now, you know, the whole Viva Suite thing is very confusing for a lot of people. You know, is it something that requires additional licensing? What exactly does it do? Is this something that we need? But we're starting with this because Viva Connections is something that we highly recommend that everybody deploy, right? It doesn't require any additional licensing. And there are a few really good features that come with it. Firstly, you know, the main thing that you would notice is that it brings your SharePoint intranet right into your Teams through the form of a Teams app that you can then pin to all users, which I'll show you here in a sec. It also allows you to have an adaptive cards dashboard, and this only is enabled once you turn on Viva Connections. This allows you to create some customizable extensions, and it also becomes the primary UI on mobile devices. So if you're using Teams on your mobile device and you access your intranet there, the Viva Connections adaptive cards are the primary user experience that they see on their mobile devices. And a really big one is global navigation. You know, it is enabled once it's part of the deployment process of Viva Connections, and it gives you all of your intranet navigation just one click away, whether you're on SharePoint, whether in your Teams, and any SharePoint site that you're on. And it really is just a few steps to implement and a little bit of planning, but there is no requirement for additional licensing to do it. So here we're looking at just a intranet, you know, modern intranet demo that we're going to use for a lot of the demonstrations today. And as you can see, it's built on SharePoint Online. But if I go to Teams right here, when I enable Viva Connections, you are able to get that same exact SharePoint intranet experience right from within Teams. Now, if you're looking at my apps here in Teams, you'll see Inspire with its own little logo here. This is actually the Viva Connections app. It can be rebranded, it can be renamed to whatever you want, right? So by default, it's going to say Viva Connections. What we tend to recommend people do is deploy the app, give it the branding that you want your intranet to have. In this case, this intranet is called Inspire. And you can even change the logo of it, and then you can pin it for all of your employees. You can even have some policies, so it's only pinned there for certain employees. You know, maybe certain employees don't need to use this intranet at all. And that way, it is just one click away, no matter what. So a lot of the Viva Suite really does that, just tries to bring it all within Teams to give your workers kind of a one-start shop, as a friend of mine coined that term, to do all of the work. Now, the experience is the same. You still have all of your SharePoint goodness, and as long as you're staying within the SharePoint environment, you know, you're not going to leave the Teams app. So one of the other features that I mentioned was the global navigation, right? If you haven't deployed Viva Connections before and you're looking at your SharePoint Online site, you're probably going to see a little logo that looks like a house right here in their, you know, your left navigation bar, and the house might just take you to the SharePoint Online homepage, which is not the most useful. Once you deploy Viva Connections, you actually get your global navigation when you click on that app, and this navigation will be consistent no matter where you are on SharePoint. You can be in any team site, you can be in any communication site, you know, whether it's project related, internet related, and even in any hub, and this navigation will stay consistent for you. And this navigation also will be in Teams. When you click on this app and you're within the app, you get the actual global navigation right here, the exact same navigation that you had in SharePoint. So again, this is part of that consistency. It's bringing your intranet navigation just one click away, no matter where you're at. And this helps out with that. You know, it's hard to find stuff because if you use SharePoint Online, you know that you had a hub navigation that kind of is consistent throughout the hub, but the minute you jump to another hub, then it's got a different navigation at the top, and that can be really confusing. So I highly recommend that you go with a Viva Connections deployment and plan out your navigation really well with some information architecture planning. And then you can deploy it and have it available and visible like that. So the other part, and I think one of the most powerful tools you get is your Viva Connections adaptive cards dashboard. If you've used SharePoint before, you probably heard, you probably know about web parts, and you know they can be customized, but one of the new SharePoint extensions are these adaptive cards, and you see it right here where it says My Dashboard. These are all cards. It's kind of similar to web parts, and they can be developed as SPFX extensions like web parts, but this is a very powerful tool, and it is mobile friendly. The way that these adaptive cards are created, you know, they're made so that they are going to look good and fit on a mobile device, whether it's a tablet or a phone. No matter how you develop them, they're just made that they have to fit there. And once you get into this kind of development, you have the ability to personalize. And when we talk about personalization, you know, it's really about making the content that people see on the internet be relevant to them, right? And how do you do that? Well, these adaptive cards and web parts are actually able to be, you know, user aware. They can know who the user is, and with a little bit of development effort, you can actually use it to drive some very powerful tools. You know, just a simple example here is an adaptive card that shows you maybe your PTO, right? And I wish I had 296 hours of available PTO, but I don't. But in this example, I do. But as you can see, I'm able to view my information. It's not generic. You know, this actually is a card that is relevant to me if I wanted to find out this information. And if somebody else were to log on and click on this adaptive card, they would see their hours. Now, once you have this ability to know who the user is, you can even develop cards and web parts that can reach out to other systems and bring the data in from there. You know, a big example that we did is working with ServiceNow, right? And this was one of the complaints I had before. So you're going to another website to go see your help tickets, to go request some help or look up some knowledge articles. By being able to get the user's contacts and email address, this card was actually developed to reach out to ServiceNow as the user, and then get their incidents, their requests, and show it in the adaptive card right here to where they could go and make changes. You could actually submit a new request. You could do most of the functions that you need to do without ever having to leave Teams or your SharePoint site or your intranet. Again, you know, overcoming those obstacles, so many places to go. You can do this with as many of the different systems as you want, as long as they have APIs, and just about every cloud system these days does. Okay, and that's the adaptive cards, you know, and it's very similar to the way web parts were. Of course, web parts in SharePoint or your little widgets or whatever you want to call it that you can put on your page. They're not necessarily as driven to be mobile friendly, because you could make it cover the whole screen if you wanted to, but they are also customizable and personal. You know, you can personalize it, and we had a great example here where users could actually update some of their preferences, right? Make changes that affect their experience on the internet. If you wanted to see, you know, save your preferred location. If I wanted to be able to, for example, show my work anniversary on the celebrations web part on the homepage, and being able to save and update user preferences in the intranet is a very powerful tool. For example, you could have a web part on your intranet that showed, you know, certain types of users, right? And if you wanted to see let's say we had a web part that showed whether it was an employee, a location, or a product spotlight. But if you wanted to be able to allow users to change what they wanted to see, it would really help it to not be just very generic to them. Okay, a good example for use cases is if you have multiple offices, multiple locations, geolocations where workers are at. If you're just showing some news, very generic news or company news on your homepage, and people work, in a different country, it would really feel not relevant to them and just something that they'll tend to scroll through. Now, if you have the ability for users to, by default, be set to a certain location so that they can see news that is for that location, or even make a choice that I want to see, some news from a different location. I want to see news that relates to a different product or business unit. And then you could even save that so the next time they come back, they're going to see the content that they really want to see. Okay, now the last thing we're going to talk about with making a personalized, intranet is making sure that you're only seeing the links that matter, right? If you're a worker, for example, with our company, we have workers that are in India and the US. It doesn't make sense to have links to your HR policy documents that are for the Indian team if I'm working in the United States, and vice versa. So you're going to want to make sure that you implement some audience targeting. And as you can see in my quick links here, I've actually got links that are relevant for both that are for the US teams and for the India teams. But by using audience targeting, using some active directory groups, I'm able to make sure that only the links that are applicable will be showing, and not all of the links that you got that are available. So it's possible to do audience targeting on some individual web parts, on actual links, even in your navigation, your global navigation, your hub nav, you can do audience targeting there. And the adaptive cards that you create, can have audience targeting as well. So if I had a holiday calendar for the US and for our overseas teams, obviously it doesn't make sense to show, this Thanksgiving or any of the US holidays necessarily for people that work in other countries. All right. Let's go on to the next one. Driving employee engagement. Okay. If you are familiar with the tool that was formerly known as Yammer, it has now been rebranded as Viva Engage, and it now lives as another app in Teams. And like I was saying, a lot of the Viva suite is really trying to bring different systems and data into a single platform, which is going to be Teams. So Viva Engage is the social networking platform for your company. It is a way to drive multi-directional communication between peers and leaders. And it's really something that gets people the ability to communicate with each other in ways that they can't always do when they're no longer in the office. We use this a lot in what we call your outer circle of people that you work with. It's a good way to communicate with people who you don't necessarily talk to on a day-to-day basis in projects, or maybe they're in different locations in different time zones. And it's a really, really a very powerful tool. And if you think about how communication is done on a broader level, whether it's between the entire company, and especially from leaders to the entire company, it's highly recommended to use tools like Viva Engage instead of just sending out an email to the entire company. Because, for example, if you send out an email that's congratulating somebody on a promotion to a new job, most people are not allowed to reply all to the entire company, right? So how are they going to say, give their kudos and cheer and applaud and all that? But now if you post that in Viva Engage, the entire company, everybody's able to go and leave their comments, thumbs up, likes, all that, and have a conversation back and forth. Also, you want to make sure that your leadership has a way to communicate, and that people can respond back to the leaders without having to send them a direct email or a Teams chat message, right? Who's going to go and email their CEO and to respond to something that they heard. Viva Engage really gives people the ability to communicate with leadership. And if you think about it, even Elon Musk responds to people on X, right? Formerly known as Twitter, whereas most people are probably not going to get a response from him if they try to send him an email directly. So let's take a look at what Viva Engage looks like these days. It is also accessed through an app in Teams, and much like the Viva Connections app, you can rebrand it and rename it. As you see here, we decided to go with the in theme and call Viva Engage In Touch. And we've got our own little logo here. By default, you would get Viva Engage, you would get a little outline of the Viva Engage logo like you're seeing here. But if you're not familiar, Viva Engage gives you the ability to have communities. And like I was saying on the last slide, these don't all have to be just super work-centric communities. This is an opportunity to allow employees to have like affinity groups, social groups, your pet lovers, your basketball players. A company I used to work with, they had an outdoor basketball court, and we would be sending out these group email blasts every day to talk about when and where we're going to be playing. So if you think about all the little social groups that you would have throughout your company, this is a great tool, and it's very low overhead and very low maintenance to get set up, but it still allows you to have that social networking, that water cooler conversations that you really lose once people start getting out of the office. And if you haven't seen the new feature that came out, last year, it was really with the storylines. This allows people to be able to have conversations without necessarily requiring it to be in a community. In older versions of Yammer, you could only make a post or start a conversation within a community. But now the storylines, it's more similar to what you're familiar with on maybe Instagram or Facebook, where it's just being able to start a conversation or a post as yourself without having to throw it into any other community. And one thing that I did want to point out is that, and this is a pretty important, I know a lot of the HR teams out there, or the legal, compliance people kind of may get a little worried when you have this kind of a platform that allows for free and open communication throughout the company. How are you going to govern this sort of tool? And there are a few options. Obviously, there is keyword monitoring to where you can configure and looking for certain keywords, whether those are bad words or other terms. And, as the admin, you'd get notified if somebody uses one of these in a post. And you also have the ability to report posts, report conversations. Other users, anybody can do this. If they see something that, maybe is inappropriate, they're able to report that conversation anonymously or even not anonymously, and it'll be sent to an admin to be able to review. Okay, now I really wanted to spend a lot of time here on search, right? Because this is where we're going to get the most benefit, and this is something that Microsoft has really been pushing the boundaries with. And you can make search not suck, but it requires a little bit of planning, a little bit of configuration ahead of time. And the first thing we're going to go over is the concept of answers in search. And if you use SharePoint in the past, you would have had okay, hang on, I got a message from Brian. By the way, there's a Q&A section in the meeting, so if you have questions that you want to ask that we can try to answer at the end here, please go to the Q&A and post your questions there.
Thanks,
okay. Yep. Speaking of the A in answers, right? If you use SharePoint in the past, we went through best bets, promoted results, and then you use query rules. Basically, these answers are one of the ways that you can make search results more relevant if you know the kind of terms that people would be searching for, and you know what those results should be. Okay. There's a few different flavors for answers. They come in acronyms, bookmarks, locations, and questions and answers. And like I said, it is the first item that they will see. It gets a big banner across of it, a big link, and definitely stands out from all of the other search results that come across. So, for example, if I'm coming in my SharePoint and I'm just searching for employees searching for onboarding, I'm looking for some content about onboarding, you will see that this first result here, it's got a little bookmark icon. That's because it was actually configured as a bookmark. Oops. All right. I guess I got to be signed in as another user. But still, it is the first result that you will see. And, you can have multiple search results show up if you want with these kind of promoted answers, or you can set it as a reserved keyword, so that if a certain keyword is searched for, there will only ever be one result that is shown. So if you have the search administrator or knowledge administrator privileges, you can go to your admin center and you go to search and intelligence, and then you'll see answers right here. And as you can see, we've got our acronyms, and acronyms obviously are just a way to define what your acronyms are. We use one that's called TIER. It's our time entry and reporting. And you can just go when you're adding a new one or you're editing them, you basically just configure, what does it stand for? Did we need a link to go anywhere for that? And you can see if I search for that here, you're going to get the acronym showing up here, tell you exactly what it is. And you see it says one result. There could be more if I really wanted to. And you're able to have a link that will actually go and take you to that, whatever link that you wanted to. Not a lot of configuration that you can do with acronyms, but you can also, with all of these different types of answers, you can export out as a CSV list, and then you can fill them all out in Excel, and then you can import it back in. So it's a much easier way to set up these promoted answers than in the old versions of SharePoint. And if your search is scoped to the hub or a site, this is more for the admin people, you have to do all of these one at a time. And that's a real pain, right? So it's really nice to be able to do this in Excel. The bookmarks are really the big one. This was like, I was showing you an example before. But you can configure hundreds of bookmarks if you like, so that every keyword that you're searching for is going to have a specific result or multiple results. You can have it, know what are some similar keywords and still show this result if that's what you want. If the people are going to be not necessarily know exactly what to be searching for. And now this reserved keywords, if you make a reserved keyword for this bookmark, then others, that's going to be the only one that will show if I search for it, and you can't use that reserved keyword when you try to configure another bookmark. And what's really neat is that with bookmarks and the Q&A, you can actually set them to only show at certain times, right? So the holidays are coming, so we're gonna want to have these holiday bookmarks set up if people are searching, the employee holiday party, for example. But maybe you don't want to have to deal with taking it down after New Year's, so you can set the dates, a start or end date, or just a start date or an end date, so it'll automatically stop showing this bookmark when it's time. Now, what's really neat is that you can also configure the bookmark to only show for users that are in certain countries or certain regions, and you can have this be either manually set. Okay, I'm only going to show this bookmark for people that are on the beach in the Bahamas, or you can use their, Azure AD location. So whatever is the location they're assigned in Active Directory, they will see the bookmark if it is set for them. And now you can also use specific Active Directory groups if you want to, again, show the bookmark only to people that work in a location or are in HR or in IT. And maybe they're the only ones who should see these administrative bookmarks. And specific devices, whether they're going to be, okay, if you have a bookmark for how to set up authenticator on a phone, on an iPhone, and then also a version for how to set it up on Android, you can show this bookmark only to specific devices, whether it's PC or whether in iOS or Android. Maybe you can make different variations of this bookmark so that you can just create the bookmark once and hey, here's a version for the iPhone users, here's one for the Android users, and you can save kind of predefine these variations. All right, I want to show this bookmark to iPhone users in the US, that are in this Active Directory group, and then also have a version of the bookmark for Android users in the US that are in a different Active Directory group. So I thought that was pretty neat, and you can even have a Power App associated with the bookmark that will show up right in the search results. And they can actually, interact with a Power App right from search without even having to go find it anywhere else. So highly, highly, highly recommend that you get the bookmarks going. Again, you can export out a CSV template. There's only a few fields that are required. Microsoft Search actually suggests a lot of bookmarks for you automatically. If you look at the category, you'll see the bunch of these. There's Word and PowerPoint and Windows, and these are suggested already. There's Microsoft Suggests, Microsoft Recommends, and there's also some AI involved here where if certain terms are searched for over and over and over again, and they go to, and everybody keeps going to a specific search result, it'll actually suggest that bookmark for you in the future. And that's why it's really important to have someone in the role of kind of a knowledge manager or a search admin who keeps the track of these things, and also reaches out to some of the businesses regularly so that they know, hey, if you have something that we should link to that is a bookmark, they have to let the knowledge manager, the search admin know so that they can, keep these updated. Locations is another neat one. It shows up in similar fashion, but it will actually give you a little bit of a map, right? So if I search for the, you'll see the NetWoven Hawaii office, and it gives you a map. It gives you the address. You can get directions right from there. So if anybody wants to come visit the NetWoven Hawaii office, that's where we're at. Okay, I see there was a question on what HR systems that Viva Connections work with. So one thing is, all of these custom developed, let's say those adaptive cards and web parts, they can really work with any system that's out there, right? Usually it depends, like I said, on if those apps have some sort of web API that can be called, and if you have some online systems, almost guaranteed that they do, and if they don't, there are ways around it, but it just requires a little bit more effort. So I would say that you can use it with just about any system that's out there.
So Janine, real quick, we did check real time, and there is an API, so connectivity could be created, but there is not one by default from Microsoft. So.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. So I was going to show this. I just had to log in with my own account. But here, if I'm searching for onboarding, right? I see the bookmark that's there. Remember, I had mentioned that it's possible to link a Power App to a bookmark. So we had created a Power App that was for onboarding. As you see from my search, the #1 search results from the bookmark, I'm able to click and open up the Power App, immediately. And here I am doing any sort of onboarding work that I need to do. I think that is a really neat feature. And really enhances the search experience for your users. Okay, last but not least, there's the Q&A. It's kind of pretty self-explanatory, right? But you're able to have a question and an answer, and still a URL that they can link to. And then you have all of the same, features about the keywords, reserved keywords, and the ability to show when and where this result should be published. So I'm searching again, even just one of the keywords that's in it, or you're searching for the actual question, you're able to see the question and the answer right from your search result and link out from there. I won't get into topics because topics is not what it seems like you would think that this would be similar to the bookmarks, but I won't get into this because it's related to Viva topics, and it's actually just excluding, so that it makes you not see certain keywords that are searched for. But I won't dive into that. Just know that this is not what it seems like in relation to all the other ones. Okay, now one of the most powerful features that you have with Microsoft Search is the ability to bring in data from other systems, right? If you've done any search before, you see what you see here at the top are called verticals. By default, you're looking at that all. I mean, it's searching all of SharePoint, OneDrive, whatever else is connected. You can use a vertical to whittle it down to just files, sites, people, but you can actually create your own verticals and configure different data sources to get data, to show search results from. So if you see here, I actually created a vertical called ServiceNow that connects to the ServiceNow knowledge base. And if I search for the word Outlook and I click on the ServiceNow vertical, I am able to view results that are from the ServiceNow knowledge base. Okay. This is pretty neat. You can connect to there's a lot of built-in connectors, not built-in, but there's a lot of available connectors already for different systems. But this is, again, one of those things of being able to incorporate some of your other third-party applications, right into the same internet experience that the users having without having to go somewhere else and search somewhere else for it. And you can choose whether you want these results to be kind of integrated along with all of the other search results, or you want it to only show in its own vertical. Another example here is Learning. Viva Learning is another great tool that we recommend using. It is included with most Microsoft 365 licenses. It's a way to bring in learning content from other LMS providers. And you get free ones from LinkedIn Learning, Microsoft Learning. But even if you use I think it's Workday or some other systems, you can leverage that content from within Teams in the Viva Learnings app. And you can even create your own, you can create a SharePoint site that you use to be your own provider in Viva Learning. So you can upload your own videos into SharePoint and leverage them through this learning platform. And as you see, we've got a vertical here, and kind of the same thing, right? We tied into Viva Learn as a source, and I can search and find contents that's on Viva Learning, and I can also have them, if you wanted to, integrated right with your own search results that integrated with SharePoint. So I've got Viva Learning's content, I've got SharePoint content here, and if I scroll farther, I'd come into the ServiceNow content as well. So I will have a link in the deck that I share out later. I have a 6-part blog series I was working on. I've got the first 2 parts released. I'm going to be releasing the 3rd part next week, and it's really deep diving into all of this search stuff. I mean, we could go on and on and on for days, although I'm sure you wouldn't want to, but really a deep dive in part 1 and 2 is the answers. Part 3, which I said will be released next week, is going to be deeper into this whole how to configure these data sources. That's what they call it, right? If you want to connect to like an intranet site, you want to connect to ServiceNow. How do you do that? It's not that complicated, but there's a lot of different configurations you can do. Even so far as how do you want to display those results? You have the power to take those search results and really show them however you want, what fields you want, and so on and so forth. So there is one really neat trick that I wanted to share. If you look at your verticals, this is where you go and configure them, by the way. There's one that shows messages. And it is a vertical that will already be out of the box and existing, but the only way that you can leverage this is Bing. Bing.com. I know nobody really wants to think. Geez. All right, let's go back to my other browser here. Sorry. Bing.com, right? You may not think about it as where you want to go to search for stuff. More people are just naturally wanting to go to Google, but it is come a long way. And if you go to bing.com/work, it is the same. It uses the same configurations of Microsoft Search. That SharePoint that I was using in SharePoint. You see all of my same verticals are right here on the left, right? Here's my ServiceNow vertical. That's here's my Viva Learning. But the one thing that you can get on Bing.com is messages. This vertical was not in my SharePoint site, but here it's actually searching all of your emails, all of your Teams chats, whether it's in a team conversation post, or whether it is just a private chat with somebody. You get to search messages in Teams. I think that is pretty neat, and something that more people need to be aware of, because if you've tried searching for that old email or that old conversation, I mean, it can really be a pain. So bing.com/work. Life hack for the day. Okay, let's see. We talked about these verticals. So the one thing I wanted to mention as well is that if you want to be able to have a vertical for a system, there are a bunch of connectors that already exist. Microsoft will provide some for free, like the ServiceNow one. There are others that have been developed by other companies where you might have to pay licensing to be able to use those connectors. But also, if you have a development team, or you want to pay hire companies such as NetWoven, we can develop custom connectors for any sort of systems you want, even if it's something that's you built in-house. You can is the ability to create a connector that will allow that data to be leveraged in search. So before I get on out of here, the searching, right? Is there any questions related to search that I can answer here?
I got nothing right now, Vince.
Okay. Okay. So one thing that wasn't exactly in the agenda originally before, but we decided we were going to throw in here, is really how are we going to kind of provide governing and provisioning tools for your intranet. If anybody here is a Microsoft 365 admin, I'm sure, or a SharePoint admin, I'm sure you've been through the pain of trying to create a templated provisioning service for SharePoint sites, right? They just don't make it easy in SharePoint Online like they used to where you could just create a template and just create new sites based on that old one. You'd have to write a script, you'd have to write some JSON, you'd have to do this and that, and it was really just a pain. But there are a few different tools out there that you could use for governance, but you want to make sure that you have easy templated provisioning, whether it's a Teams, whether it's a Viva Engage community, or whether it's a SharePoint site, any kind of workspace you want. And we're going to highlight a product that Woman's developed called Govern 365, and it's really great. You can configure a template for any of the workloads in Microsoft 365, and then create, provision new ones based on that template. And it has automated lifecycle management, which means that, let's see right here, to see my calendar while we're loading up G365. Okay. Which means that, as an employee, as an information worker, if I need a new Teams or I need a new, Viva Engage community, you can just go and request one, and you can build templates that are predefined ahead of time, right? If I want to have a team and I want to have a certain files ready in it, if I want to have a certain, set of tabs, I want a naming convention, all of this can be predefined, and then you can just easily create new teams when you have projects. It's like the ability to clone, but even more than that is the ability to have some sort of life cycle and governance around it, around the thought of like, hey, when should we be deleting these SharePoint sites, right? How do we want to protect them? How do we have data security and information protection implemented already without the people who are requesting it, without your users having to know, how to deploy this and what exactly entails. So that was one of the key features that we thought about when we were developing this, was that we had a lot of requests for having this intranet tool that they could share externally, but still be completely protected, right? So secure collaboration. And I say this because, like I said, the intranet is really more of the digital employee experience these days. It's a lot more than just the SharePoint site, and you want to make sure that no matter what you're doing, there's always some governance around it, and information protection needs to be key. So this is the directory. As I was saying, if you want to have a governance tool, you should be able to have some dashboarding and some reporting. But if I want to see all the different teams, you tried searching for a team before. I have maybe 70 or 80 teams that I'm a part of, right? Every project, every group that I'm in, and it can get a little daunting. Okay, 68 teams, right? There we go. I remember 68 teams, but now I can just search and find them, in a much easier fashion. Like I said, being able to find stuff. You see my Viva Engage communities. I can find the workspaces that I'm an owner of. Right, if I clear out the filters here, here's all the SharePoint sites. See the ones which are have external sharing, and which ones, like I said, that I'm the owner of them, and I just think it's a pretty nifty tool. It allows you to have some sort of a automated lifecycle management, right? These teams should only be existing for X amount of time. Otherwise, they're going to ask you what you need to do with the disposition, and being able to report on that and keep track just really keeps your whole intranet from sprawling out of control. So check it out. Govern365.com is the website for that. And okay. So what are, the next steps? I mean, the building of the ultimate intranet, like this is this is not just a, like I said, it's a journey, right? It's not a destination. It's a never ending. I won't say never ending, but it's a long process. And especially with a cloud tool like Microsoft 365, which is constantly evolving, constantly having new features. It's something that you really need to plan out a roadmap and then just kind of go step by step. As the attendees here, we're be happy to get in touch. Just reach out, shoot me an email. We'd like to know exactly where you're at on the journey, so that we can figure out what are the next steps you want to take. Brian, I don't know, did you put that poll out there on kind of where people are at on their intranet modernization journey? Or
Yeah, Vince, that was one of the first ones.
Okay, great. Yeah, shoot me an email. We'll talk about it, kind of plan out the next steps. And I know we got, we still got a bunch of time left, so we can open it up to some Q&A. If anybody wants to, has any questions, please feel free to shout them out.
Vince, one thing I want to point out, right, as we talk about the, the new, modern intranets or the ultimate intranets for the digital employee experience here, Microsoft has put a lot of effort into integrations in with Teams and flexibility for workforces, right? So we see people work all sorts of different ways. May that be frontline workers and on mobile devices, or people who are in Teams all day or prefer traditional intranets. The nice thing that Microsoft has done with their services is allowed that data to flow across all those workloads. And so regardless of employees and how they work, the data is the same. And from an admin and a content creation perspective, you have to create it once, and Microsoft workloads will surface that up across all of their applications. So that's a time saver by bringing your content into M365.
Yep, absolutely agreed. All right, well, if there's no other questions, I know we can be finishing a little early, but nothing wrong with giving anybody a little bit of their time back. I just want to thank you all for coming today. Please feel free, reach out. We will be reaching out again, kind of share the presentation. Happy to answer any and all questions. And if you're looking forward to getting started, or you already have a SharePoint intranet and just want to get into some of these customized developments, I think there is a lot of potential that can be unlocked with just the right amount of effort and work put into it. So thank you, everybody. Have a very good day, and hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone, for joining today.